Now when I think of SNK, the first thing I think of is this. I know them for fighting games, but the 40th Anniversary Collection is a Switch exclusive collection for their 80s hits, specifically 14 of them, and features both their arcade and console counterparts and US and Japanese versions. Now I'm 23, and while I can appreciate some good arcade games, these are totally before my time, but I understand the intended audience is still older than me, so let me cover the features of the collection for those that already know these games and want to see what else this collection has to offer. Then, for those that aren't aware of these games, I'll go into each of them afterwards. This collection is developed by Digital Eclipse, the folks behind the Street Fighter collection and the Mega Man Legacy collection. First one, not X. The museum features an expansive gallery of art, guidebooks, advertisements, newsletters, and manuals, all featuring flavor text providing history on everything present. The other day I came across a thread about the research that was done and the journey there was to collect the research, and I'm gonna link that in the description if you're curious how much effort they went to getting the research for this museum part of the game. Now for the games themselves, the collection comes with 14 80s games for $40, with 11 more games coming December 11th as free DLC. For the arcade versions, you can control parameters like difficulty, lives, and sometimes even where you start in other settings. There's also a rewind feature for some games, but generally that's not too useful for arcade games. Most of the games aren't technically set to free play, but pressing start always sets the credit counter to 1 or 2. And thus, you can pick up right where you die in almost every game. Not all though, some games use checkpoints. The games also have a watch feature where you can essentially have the game play itself and then take over whenever you want. For the console games, some of them actually support rewind, which is definitely more beneficial than on some of the arcade games. Of course, that's besides Guerrilla Warriors, where you can press ABBA to respawn, or rather YBBY. Generally though, as expected, the console versions can be inferior to the arcade versions unless they pack their own charm. With every one of these collections, you get your aspect ratio settings and filters, and I'm glad to say a smooth filter actually isn't present. Actually, it's two different kinds of scanline filters, TV and monitor. I don't really have a problem with these ones, as they're nice attempts to recreate the kinds of screens that these games were intended to be displayed upon. Anyways, you get a more accurate resolution size option, a full screen size that keeps the aspect ratio, and then this stretched full screen one if you're into that kind of thing. And yes, you can turn the borders off. I'm a fan of borders usually myself, but I see a lot of people that always complain about borders, so if you want to turn them off, yeah, you can. The game also supports portrait mode when undocked. Now, I went into this assuming you could use one Joy-Con per player, but that's not the case. You can remap most of the buttons though, including the directions, but not the minus button, and the left Joy-Con D-pad and analog stick read as the same inputs. So, to put it short, player 1 has to use 2 Joy-Cons, player 2 will need another controller entirely. Just a heads up on that. Regardless, I personally broke out the fight stick to play most of these games with. With the right adapter, it worked perfectly fine. Speaking of player 2 though, there's couch co-op but no online. Maybe even a few months ago I wouldn't have brought this up, but Nintendo's NES Netflix service has online play, and also Capcom's Beat 'em Up bundle has net play, which is sick. In that game you could just start up a lobby and play any of those games, and people are just free to hop in on your session. It really feels arcade-like in that way, where a stranger could just come up and get in on your game. That's not present here, and I think that would add a lot to the 2-player games. I think going forward, online should be the standard for any of these collections that have 2-player, but that's just me, I guess. SNK has neglected online before though. There's a plethora of Neo Geo games on Switch, but none of them are updated for any sort of online. Alright, that covers the general stuff. So for those that don't know these games, I'm gonna really quickly run through them all for you. Alpha Mission is a sci-fi shmup. I definitely think I've played this in Pizza Hut before. In Athena, you play as a knight who loses all of her clothes and has to pick up clothes and weapons again while moving forward. The game feels clunky, but I mean it works. Crystallis is it's a console game. I'll come back to this one later. Guerrilla War. Honestly, not a fan of war games, probably the fatigue of war games from the 2000s, but it's a war shmup. Ikari Warriors 1 through 3. Alright, so the first one, again, tired of war games, just gonna let this one go. Ikari Warriors 2, however, you're in space, and you start with this weapon, and it's awesome. This is the best shmup in the collection. You can even get a sword. 3 just kinda goes back to war, but I mean it looks better, so there's that. Iron Tank is another console-only game, but let me just get this one out of the way. It's another war shmup, but this time you're in a tank. Oh, game has a codec for you to respond to. Well, after pressing every button to find the menu button, I finally found it. Now I can check what... Alright, POW isn't a shmup. This one is a great beat 'em up. Yeah, it's still war, but this one's kinda cartoony since even when you get guns, you just knock enemies back. This one's a lot of fun. Even the NES version is pretty good. It's like Double Dragons but with a better frame rate. Prehistoric Isle is another shmup, but this time you're shooting dinosaurs and cavemen, and you shoot dinosaur eggs to get upgrades out of them. The boss designs are pretty far out there, and overall, I think this competes for best shmup in the collection. It's colorful, creative, sick bosses and upgrades, but you don't get a sword. It's still pretty great though. Psycho Soldier, alright, so you play as a little girl and go up and down and shoot and... No, I can't continue playing because of that. Let me try the Japanese version, see if that's better. Nah, not really. It gives me a Hong Kong 97 vibe. Bit crush music with lyrics is so unsettling. Street Smart, this is a kinda clunky 1v1 beat 'em up game, but it is not a fighting game. The AI is just really unfair in this one, I can't beat it. Hold on, let's play the video and see how you're supposed to play this one. The video feature is basically just a tool-assisted speedrun, they don't even take a single hit. Tank 3, this one's an arcade version so you get full aim control. I like it, for a tank game, it's the one to play in the collection. Vanguard is a unique shmup in that you can shoot in 4 directions, and look at all this geometry. When you grab this power-up thing, you become invincible and can even go through the geometry. Even got a little level layout at the top here, it's pretty cool. It's an older shmup, but it's interesting and the color scheme is pretty cool. Alright, I did skip over one game and I think it's time to try it out. It's called Crystallis. I wonder if the Japanese name is any different. This is a full-blown NES RPG. It doesn't fit the mold of any of the other games in the collection. Let me tell you about it. The game is a post-apocalyptic game, wait for it, 100 years after a thermonuclear war that reverted civilization to primitive medieval existence. Science was abandoned and for the most part you're setting out to fight off the Dragonia Empire. It's got a crazy amount of upgrades, and for the time it has elaborate dungeons, and it's not turn-based at all. It's pretty smooth combat actually, and you get magic spells like the ability to jump and stuff that actually changes up the flow of combat throughout the game. Some of the bosses can be quite annoying too. I don't know, I'm just really impressed. Apparently this is regarded as one of the best RPGs on the NES, so I definitely say that this is an 80s diamond in the rough. So, this collection has a lot of games that cover the same grounds. I don't think 12 games is a lot, but they should have more. But if they were going to be stingy anyways, why have the same kinds of games? Maybe it's lost on me not knowing the history or the legacy, but half these games could have been cut, and I think the ones that are worth playing at least are POW, Ikari Warriors 2, Prehistoric Isle, and Godslayer. So that's my review. Let me know what you think of the collection and the choice of games they made, and about its features, possibly recommendations for them as well. Again, thanks for watching. Check me out on Go to Bedcast, live Thursdays and Fridays, and follow me on Twitter. So until next time, peace.